everyone. Sorry for the interruption. So I'm Alex van der Sande, and I'm with Universal Logins. I've been working in Ethereum since 2015, so that's been a while. And we've been working on Universal Login for the past 2 years, and I would like to share a little bit of what we've learned, because we started with really this premise of what would it take to put 1 billion people on crypto, right? And we've learned a lot along the way. It started as a research project. Now it's a company. And I think one of the main things we've learned is that the big onboarding problem is really 3 main pillars, right? It's security, developer experience, and user experience. And let's go on each one of those. First, security. So a lot of what security is really just an exercise of searching of that one little thing that if it goes wrong, everything will break at the same time, right? And so it's about searching for single points of failures. And there are a lot of single points of failure that you can find, right? Maybe that you have a custodian and the custodian breaks, or maybe like a device or a software, or even your domain. One of the main single point of failures in all of crypto is just the private key, right? The private key is where people, it's the one thing that people will not back up. It's the one thing if they do backup, they may do a backup to iCloud, and then that gets hacked. It's the one thing that they put a USB drive, they throw in the trash, and then you have $8 million in Bitcoin in a landfill somewhere, right? And I don't think you can scale to 1 billion people if you are relying on always a private key. So what you need to do at start is every fund should be based on multiple keys. But then if you do a multi-sig for every user, you come back to the next problem in which, hey, wait, now you have a multi-sig that is maybe the source of your single point of failure, right? If that multi-sig fails, then everything fails. And we've done our best that we could to avoid that. Things like we've worked to formally verify our code. We were getting ready to audit our code, but then we decided to take a bolder move, and we moved to know the safe. And why the interesting part of know the safe is really that it's not like a single contract, it's really a huge ecosystem. Because there are multiple people using it. It's becoming a standard. There are over $10 million held on that. That's actually, it's probably much more now just from the Ether price, but it's like over 60,000 Ether on it. If you see that jump on January, that's when Noses itself decided to move their own Ether to Noses Safe, to put their money where their mouths are, right? More importantly, that it's not only formally verified, it's audited, done by runtime verification, and also it's insurable, right? You can use NextSwitch Mutual to pay about 1% of what you get. So it means that if you put 1,000 DAI on a Noses multisig, and you put that on Compound, in 3 months of 2 or 3 months of interest, you're gonna pay insurance for the rest of the year, right? So I think that's an interesting thing, right? You're not only depending on. So if that single code fails, you have a lot of ways in which you can avoid that. So that's one thing that we're building, right? So as a start, we are giving, instead of having every user rely on a single private key, now you have every user have another multi-sig as the start, right? And I think that's already super important. The second thing we've learned is about developer experience, right? You need to focus to make your product as easy to use, not only for users, but also to developers. So mostly what you need to do is you go to your project and you just do yarn import, and you start with one line of code, you set up the uline setup picker, and you'll be moving from MetaMask to Universal Login. How that works, I think you can just do a quick demo, right? We are running on a version of Kickback, and we are basically just do yarn add. It's gonna install all the dependencies for you, and then you're that's it. And now all you need to do is go into the files and replace a few lines of code. First one is just, of course, you import the library into your project, right? Just import UniLogin provider. And then the next one is that now you need to figure out a place where you import a Web3 provider, and instead just say, hey, like the Web3 provider, the current set provider is going to be from Universal Login, right? So it's basically saying that like whenever you ask for Universal Login provider, you open a picker to set up between MetaMask and Universal Login. And finally, you just adding a button somewhere where if you don't actually ask for the provider automatically, it's gonna make show the pop-up for you, right? So it's just button ID Universal Login, right? So in those 3 small changes, we've moved from a MetaMask app into now a Universal Login app. And now, another thing we've learned about developer experience is that it's a constant putting stacks all over again, right? So first we've built our smart contracts, and then we realized, look, we need to do the relayer code also. And then after that, look, we're going to build the SDK, JavaScript, so people can interact with the relayer and the smart contracts. But then that's not, like, we thought that was good enough, but man, like we were wrong, right? Then we realized that people don't actually want to interact directly with your SDKs. What we wanted to do is to build a Web3 provider that would sort of translate all the calls to Web3 provider into our SDK. Finally, we realized that even that, there's still a lot of complexity. Things like how do you confirm a transaction? How do you add a new key? All of that requires a new UI. And we provide everyone with a UI library that allows you to simply to have all those things built. You can build them by yourself, but the idea is that it's going to be something that is going to be integrated within your app. It's just going to open a little bit a window. So let me show you how that looks, right? I'm going to show it next. So user experience, right? So, like, we've built the last layer of the stack, as I said, was a UI library, right? And the interesting thing about UI library is that the decoration is just the thing on top. Everything down there, like the huge stack of the user experience, is a lot of the code that we are building. And we wanted to provide an in-app experience, so you don't need to like move to another domain and go back. You're never, in fact, going to have to go to the UniLogin domain. Like that's not necessary. Like your app is all hosted in your own domain. So how that looks is that, so what happens is like when the first time you are going to require a username, like a Web3 instance, we're going to just ask you to provide a username. And we're going to check, and if that username doesn't exist, we're going to create you. And this step, we're going to create you a little Nozes multisig for you. And then all you need to do is like you're going to deposit some Ether or you're going to deposit some DAI. And after that, we're going to deploy that contract. It's interesting because actually, because you already have the address, you can use your multisig a little bit before you actually deploy it. And then that address there is already like the multisig that we deployed. The moment that we've got a DAI from you, we've deployed that automatically for you. And now all you need to do is like you're creating an account. Right now you're creating an account right on Kickback. Now on Kickback, you're already, like you didn't have to use MetaMask. All you need to do now is like let's say you're gonna search for a cool event to join on Kickback. And then when you RSVP, we're going to just pop up a confirmation from Universal Login saying, hey, do you want to do this transaction? And then from your account, you're interacting, right? So you're going, and you just did that by using a multisig, which I think it's very cool. And you can see downstairs that UniLogin is there as an attendance. In fact, this is a real event like that happened yesterday, and you could see that we were actually in attendance. So that was very cool. And there's an extra cool thing about using a multisig, and I think that's very cool, is the idea that you can use your devices, like other devices. So one of the cool things about having a multisig is you can actually share your funds between multiple devices and multiple apps without having to share your private key. So what's happening downstairs, down here, you probably went a little bit fast, is that like we went into this other app called Jarvis, and you are able to log in with your universal login account by just typing your username. You just typed your username in one side, and then all you needed to do was confirm on the other app. So that's actually a pattern that users are very used to, where like let's say you want to log in with Google on your phone. All you need to do is go to somewhere you're already logged in and confirm, yeah, that's actually me, right? So you sort of skip passwords and all of that. And I've like separated a few screens to show you like how it looks. So this is a confirmation transaction. Like that happens all inside the browser. All you need to do is like just select. You can select things like Ether, DAI, and like how you can actually pay your fees in DAI if you want. And this is like a pending transaction screen, and this is the part where you sort of have to confirm a transaction. What we do is we show you a set of symbols in one side, and you confirm on the other, just to make sure there was not a man in the middle attacking right there. Finally, one last thing is that we've been like universal logins for 2 years now, and it started really as a research, like an EAP thing about like universal Ethereum logins. Now we are just simplifying for UniLogin, which I think is cool, and it's really like we took like we took a page from like Sun Parker, just UniLogin, right? And that's basically what we've been doing, right? So we've got a new website, unilogin.io. I encourage you to go there. Our Twitter is still the same. And I'm even blinking for you to make sure you remember that. Please follow me and Marek. I hope everything went well. Yeah, blinking is actually it's a feature, it's not a bug. So thank you, guys.